Last week, before the Idaho murder story broke, we'd planned to do a story celebrating a major compromise in the state of Ohio, where House Democrats and Republicans came together to select a more moderate GOP House Speaker. And now, of course, we learn that since then, there is the all-too-typical political price to pay for moderation. Moderation that the vast majority of the country and Ohioans support. In this case, the Ohio Republican Party showed us everything that's wrong with our politics today. They didn't say, hey, we disagree with those in our party who voted for the more moderate Republican as House Speaker. Certainly would have been their right. They didn't say, look, we think the more conservative pick would have been the better one. No, instead, the Ohio Republican Party's Central Committee overwhelmingly approved a censure resolution against the 22 members of their own party who had the audacity to work with Democrats and reach across the aisle by voting for a fellow moderate Republican named Jason Stephens as House Speaker. For days last week, the nation watched with some embarrassment as the U.S. House of Representatives went through a record 15 votes before Republicans finally had enough votes to elect Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. And it sure seems like Democrats did little or nothing to try to reach across the aisle to try to figure out any compromise. Well, Democrats in the Ohio House, who were also in the minority, took a different approach, recognizing that even though they may not get their first choice, they did have some power to try to find a compromise. So all 32 Democrats in the Ohio House got together with those 22 Republicans and backed a GOP moderate, Jason Stephens, as Speaker. The more hardline Derek Marin was defeated 54-43, and Stephens took over.
I pledge to respect and to work with each and every one of you. I pledge to always have an open door.
And for that, the Ohio Republican Party approved a censure resolution. That resolution claims their votes for fellow Republican Stephens, quote, dishonors the vote of the Ohio House Republican Caucus, dishonors the historic brand of the Republican Party, and misrepresents the voice of Ohio Republican voters who collectively voted for these 22 members in order to defeat the dangerous and perverse Democratic Party caucus agenda. One of the lawmakers censured responded by saying, what you're telling me is that I'm a Republican that voted for a Republican speaker and the state Republican Party is censuring me? Sounds like the dip, you-know-whats, are running the insane asylum. Sounds like it makes sense to me. But let's bring in Ohio State Representative and Democratic House Minority Leader Allison Russo. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, did you know that this compromise would end up getting your Republican colleagues in so much trouble?
Well, I certainly knew that there would likely be a price to pay for those Republicans in terms of continued division within their caucus as we move through this General Assembly. But I will say, even I was surprised at the censure that emerged within a day or two after that vote and the language within the censure. And I think it just speaks to just how absurd some partisan politics have become. And, the response from the public to the news about that censure, people just, were dumbfounded and frustrated because it speaks to, I think, what most people find very frustrating about politics and government in general is that they send us there to get work done, not to play these partisan games.
Well, the more conservative Marin, is it Marin or Marin, the pronunciation? Marin blamed his defeat on Stephens, the more moderate, using Marin's father's death. He said, quote, Stephens and his allies ramped up their efforts when they found out Marin's father, Russell Marin, was in hospice. That's when the foot on the gas pedal went into play. Marin's father, Russell, died on December 29th. What did you make of that?
Well, I think, certainly for the Marin family, the loss of Representative Marin's father was sad and unfortunate timing for his family. But really, these conversations began well before anyone knew that that was happening. And to be clear, both of these members are very conservative. So certainly one is probably more to the far extreme of conservative, and one I would say is more centrist conservative, if there is such a thing these days. But I think it speaks to the larger thing that we see happening at the national level, and what we saw play out in Congress last week is this real division in the Republican Party right now, where you have a group that really is interested more in chaos and the culture wars, and then you have another group that, while conservative and certainly do not share some of my ideologies, still want to get things done and are interested in governing and the institutions of governing.
I got to read you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.